Hello, Jill here. Welcome to Everland by Jill. Come on in, let me show you what I'm working on today. Today I have my stitch library, and we've come quite a ways, as you know. If you watch, we have a video for each page in our stitch library. And my rings were a little small, as mentioned in the last videos. I knew I wasn't going to be able to hold all 12 pages. However, we just decided we would make another little book, so I attached 6 to these rings here, and now I started this little book here with number 7, and then our last stitch was number 8. Our last page was number 8, and today we are on page number 9. And so let's see. What stitch are we going to use today? What stitch do we need to use? Well, there's a couple of knots that I'm not really good with. One of them is the Colonial Knot. I don't know why. I get the thread all tangled up, and I'm just not really good at catching on to that Colonial Knot. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do a French knot. I'd like to try a beaded knot. We'll try some of those things and see what happens. Okay, so I had to work out with these knots how I was going to, as you know, when I'm working on these pages in this book, I don't want the thread to go through the back. And when you're doing knots, it's not the easiest thing to run your needle back under where you're stitching. So I had to work that out and just decide my my little knots were sometimes going to be a little difficult to make, and also that they were going to be a little bit sideways. Does that make sense? Be a little bit sideways. I'm still able to hold the center down, or hold the working thread off to the side for these. And I just wanted to do some of them kind of scattered. I think that's as far as I'm going to go as far as traveling, because this thread is getting too short for me to travel very far with it. So I'm going to do a couple more up in this area, and then I'm going to scoot down to the bottom and just do a couple more Colonial knots. So I will show you Colonial knot, and my left hand is the working thread. It's going to go under, the needle's going to go under the working thread and then over the needle and then down. Actually, it's a very easy stitch. It's probably, actually, once you get the hang of it, it's probably easier than a French knot, actually. So I'm kind of out of breath. I just came in from running around after the dogs, and you know, it they can wear me out. But we have a neighbor who walks her dog. She has 2 big dogs, and then she just got her Westie must be under a year old, and my little Westies just love to go out and say hello to her little baby. So that had to be done, and then we have to go out and gather my little Westies up because it's time to come in now. So, but that does make a nice little clean knot. Now this was the first one I did, and I was trying to still work out how to come between the fabrics and come up without putting a stitch through the back. But that's how I ended up doing it. And I'm going to finish this working thread off and then get a new one, because one thing when you're doing these knots, your thread kind of has to be big enough to get where you need it to go. So I'm going to put that one down, and I'm going to thread up another needle and start it again. Or continue on, I should say. I thought I had another one here. Let's see how long this piece is. Oh, that's not very much longer. I don't mind snipping off a new one. Okay. And we got the green end first. And let's see, how many threads is this? I think I was using 3 threads there. 1, 2, yeah. So I'm going to continue to use 3. This is a 6-stranded variegated cotton thread. I'll just get those separated. Excuse me for being out of the frame while I get this thread together. Oh yeah, that's gonna look nice. And I think I'm going to, okay, I kind of wanted to start with green. So I'm going to start down here with getting the green in here, and then it should gradually evolve to the more raspberry color and the pinks. I'm going between the fabrics there, and I don't think that's an important thing as far as this project goes, other than the core, what do I say, the creation of the pages. It's not, the creation of the pages isn't really about the stitching, right? It's about the creation of the pages. And so when I wanted to do just I wanted this to just be about some stitching, some cute and useful stitches. Needle under, thread over, there's your next stitch. I'm going to do a cluster of little green ones here. And then I'm going to start working my way up the page. Needle under, thread over, and then I will end up toward the pink when I get up a little farther. That'll be cute, I think. There we go. Yeah, those are cute. Under, over, and we're going to have another knot right there. Oops. Let's try this again. Under, over, and again, most of the problem I'm having is because I am traveling in between the layers of fabric instead of going to the back, which would have been much easier, but oh well. I like having my pages ready. Each month, like I said, this is April. This is number 9. Now remember, we didn't do it according to a calendar year, January through December. So we are just working 12 pages whenever they fall in the calendar year. And April happens to be our 9th month that we've been working on this book. So, and if you notice, I'm not putting, not really putting the name of the stitches on the pages. As I go back and look at my pages in my stitch library, and I believe if you do something like this as well, you'll see that you'll know what stitches you kind of were creating on what pages. And then you'll see the variations that we've done and be able to choose stitches for other projects and so on. That was the idea behind this book, and it still is. What I noticed was happening was on my, let me show you, on my original pages, I started doing wrap stitches, fly stitches, things like that. Very easy to see. But then as I went along, this was some more straight stitches, and I combined some things here. And then I got more creative with the fabric and created more of a layout where maybe the stitches weren't the primary focus, or I shouldn't say the primary focus, but they kind of fell out of focus, right? And of course on this Christmas one, when I was doing couching, I really got away from being able to see the stitches, although I did a nice job on I love the beads on there. And then here, I started to realize I was getting away from it, and we had problems with that video, and my blanket stitches were not showing up the way we wanted, so we did the extra page of the blanket stitches. And in many respects, I think that this page would have been a better way to display the stitches that we're using in, or I shouldn't say in the book or on the pages. And again, if you look at this page, that's not bad, because I kept the page very, very simple with just little splotches of fabric and then the stitch laid on top. Excuse me. So you could see it, but then some people, the stitches were small, so I decided I would do another page, and this page again falls into the ones where this is a very good example of what we're doing. So if I do another stitch book, which I very well might, I think my pages would look more like this, and I would go from there. And this one with the lacy daisies, same thing. So for this book, since it was started and it's somewhat, the pages are decorative as well as functional, I'm going to continue it that way through the next, let's see, April, May, June, July. And then we'll see what we're going to do for another book, or I may do something different. I'm still thinking, hashing that out in my brain. I've had a lot of things in my brain lately, and I need to start clearing some of them out. But in my last video on the threads of intention, I did show you some projects I had been working on, and so fun. Some of them are just so fun. And using different stitches, different techniques. I'm trying to decide what my next long-term project is. As you know, or you may not know, I'm doing a phonology wheel. It's rather a different kind of phonology wheel than a lot of people think of them. But I'm having so much fun with that. And that is a daily practice project. And when you do a daily practice project, it's, for me, difficult to incorporate another daily project into the works because of scheduling. It's more or less a scheduling thing. And with my phonology wheel, you also might realize that I don't post a video every week. And what I do is I post an introductory one, and then I post, I do a introductory video, and then I do weekly posts to show updates, and then at the end of the month I do an ending video so that you can see how everything turned out. So that usually works out pretty good for me. So who knows, that might be what we do. So I'm going to carry on. So when you make a commitment for a daily project, I mean, that's quite a commitment. Although it's not, it's a lovely commitment. I shouldn't say that. It's a lovely commitment for daily practice. And stitching, my phonology wheel is watercolor and watching weather and things like that. And I love it because there's a lot of things you notice out there that you don't notice if you're not doing that. But the project itself is a daily observation, right? And to create that project day by day, it doesn't take but 10 or 15 minutes. That's a lot of time. It's more like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes a day. Not bad at all. But now if you pile another daily project on top of that, that's another 5 to 10 minutes. Also not bad and probably doable. But now, if you add on top of that you're creating a video every time you're doing your daily practice, or every time, that becomes too much. And that's where we have to I have to monitor myself and say, no, Jill, you're not going to do that. You're going to do, you're going to change that. You're just going to post once a week. And you can do it via a post on your YouTube channel, which I'm doing with my phonology wheel. Or you could post it, you could do it on Instagram or anything else, your daily, without creating a video. But the videos take time. The videos, it's not so much making the video either. They tell you, they do tell you, if you research YouTube and think about putting a channel together, they do tell you how much time it takes average time it takes to edit a video and things like that. And depends on how much you want to edit your video. I don't want to edit my video at all. But is that realistic? No, because sometimes my dogs bark and I want to take that barking out of the soundtrack, or if somebody comes to the door and I didn't shut the video off, and I want to be able to go back and remove that. Things that don't pertain to what the video is about. So it gets rather time consuming in that aspect. And then I get distracted, and coming back to the video, I might have already recreated the thing or created it and finished it thinking I was recording, because that's where I left off, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. I forgot to turn the camera back on, or the recording shut off. Oh, that's just so sad. So I'm sure some of you that do videos know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, I'd encourage you to try it. I mean, I think doing the videos is a cool thing. I love making them. I love sharing with you guys. So don't think I don't love that. But I think for me, the biggest thing is not overwhelming myself with reoccurring projects that I don't like to make a commitment unless I can keep it. That's why I started out on this little project, because I knew this was a monthly thing. I mean, we only do these pages once a month. So I thought I can do that. I can do this for 1 month. I can try it out and see how my commitment goes. And then also I thought I'm going to do the phonology wheel, because that was kind of separate, and I wanted to do that for a different reason when I started it in January. And okay, so I am just going to continue on here making my little colonial knots and filling in this little section here. And I'll come back when I get that done, and then we'll see where we're going from there. See you in a few.